As we have been discussing the declining birth rates globally, it has been it has been wonderful to watch what is going on in South Korea. It's been wonderful because they implemented the 4B. The South Korean women implemented the 4B movement about a decade ago, and watching the tumble. The birth rate is in hell, basically, in South Korea. And what is the government doing about it? They are doubling down on their antagonism towards women. I'm watching this because I see a parallel in how the United States Republicans are doubling down on their antagonism towards women and reproductive rights and being anti-choice. And I follow data, I follow trends. I have a feeling that we will continue to tumble. But let's talk about Korea's fertility rate. This was just published just here recently. South Korea's fertility rate marks the lowest in quarter two of 2023. It's still tumbling. South Korea's fertility rate has dropped to a record low 0.7 in the second quarter of 2023, according to the latest government report, and yet another stark indicator of the deepening demographic crisis in the nation already grappling with the world's lowest birth rate. According to the monthly demographic and census report released on Wednesday by Statistics Korea, the country's statistics body, there were 56,087 newborns in the second quarter, a 6.8% drop from the same period last year. The count represents the lowest since 2009 and marks 91 months of consecutive decline in births. The country's population has been decreasing for 43 consecutive months, according to the report. In June alone, the number of newborns was 18,615, while the number of deaths stood at 26,820. Think about that, y'all. Think about that. In a separate report released the same day, Statistics Korea confirmed that last year's fertility rate at 0.78, aligning with a preliminary estimate released in February. Given the current trends, this year's fertility rate may decline further and potentially break last year's low. The fertility rate for the first quarter of 2023 stood at 0.81. Previous governmental efforts, including cash incentives and subsidized fertility treatments, have largely been ineffective in reversing this trend. A country requires the fertility rate of 2.1 to sustain a stable population without migration. Now, they talk about the governmental efforts. Let's talk about what the government is doing that is antagonizing women. Let's get into that part. For a country that wants more babies, it is very weird that they are so anti-woman and anti-feminist and antagonistic towards feminists. So I saw this opinion piece from this woman, Haewang Jung. So it says, this Women's Day, there's very little to celebrate in South Korea. Let's look at life from the eyes of a woman. On March 4th, recipients of the South Korea's annual Obstacles to Gender Equality Award were announced at an early International Women's Day rally in Seoul. As expected, among the winners were companies with discriminatory practices and a politician who had recently made a sexist remark. How are y'all going to get women to have babies when y'all are antagonistic towards women? Tell me how. Let's continue. But one recipient stood out from the crowd, gender equality Minister Kim Hyun-sok. Kim, who is supposed to be the top advocate for women's rights in this country, was selected to receive the tongue-in-cheek award reportedly for her ignorant and irresponsible attitude toward sexism. Isn't it par for the course to use a woman against women in a patriarchy? So this government, the Yoon Suk-yeol's conservative government, is the one that has been antagonizing the feminists. Yoon won March 9th, 2022 presidential election in an openly misogynistic platform. He worked hard to appeal to men who are anxious about losing ground to women and expertly capitalized on the growing anti-feminist backlash in the country. And since Yoon's ascent to the presidency, gender equality has become a taboo topic in Korean public life. In public life. This is crazy, y'all. They want women to have kids, but they do not want gender equality. Political efforts to further women's rights hit a wall, and past achievements came under sustained attack. This is deeply worrying. This is a deeply worrying development, as South Korea's record on women's rights, especially in workplaces, was already much worse than the rest of the industrialized world before the Yoon presidency. Korean women are often pressured to give up their careers after childbirth, and those who work outside the home still carry out the lion's share of household chores and childcare duties. Sexual crimes against women, especially technology-facilitated sexual violence, such as the use of spy cams to secretly film women, are rampant in both public and private spheres. Since the late 2010s, however, Korean women have been fighting back against their country's patriarchal culture with unprecedented force through a local Me Too movement, arguably the most robust in all of Asia. They exposed the misconduct of many powerful men, including that of a presidential contender. They fought vigorously for tougher punishments for spy cam crimes. They successfully campaigned to abolish the country's decades-long abortion ban, and millions of them vowed to stay unmarried and child-free in a so-called birth strike. So let's talk about the 4B movement. The 4B movement is based on principles of Bihan, no to heterosexual marriage, Bishusan, no to childbirth, Biyonne, no to dating, and B6U, no to heterosexual relationships. No to heterosexual sexual relationships. So, no to childbirth, no to marriage, no dating, no sex. They are shutting it down. Shut it down. And what I want to see is globally where women are disrespected, this clamping down of the wombs. This is the model. This is a hard stoppage until women's equality, women's rights, women's opportunities are respected across the board. All right, but this outburst of feminist advocacy, however, has triggered an angry pushback from men who thought women were going too far, demanding too much, and in the process harming Korean society. Feminists began to be vilified online as mentally diseased people following an antisocial ideology. So they are coming for women wanting equality, wanting to be safe, wanting to be free from spy cams. This is a bad thing. Women thinking that they have some rights. They're being met with negativity. So the women are pushing back even harder, and I love that for them. Yoon's right-wing People Power Party expertly tapped into this well of resentment during his presidential campaign. Yoon said structural sexism is no longer existed in South Korea. He blamed feminism for the low fertility rates, claiming feminist ideas making it difficult for men and women to date. So this just goes back to show that men are not listening to women, and that the divide will continue, and that the birth rates will continue to decline. That's what will happen. And so we shall see. And I will definitely be watching this. You guys jump in the comments. Tell me what you think. Like, comment.